Welcome to Medicaid Mastery, a cut above explaining the real long-term care Medicaid system.
This is episode 6, Medicaid rules for married couples. What happens when one spouse needs long-term care? Tony, I'm happy to be back with you, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. Let's give these people this good information. So let's talk about when a spouse needs long-term care. How does Medicaid assess the couple's finances?
Okay, so different states do it different ways, but we're focused particularly on Florida. And Florida basically says the assets of the husband and the wife count. So in other words, both parties, whether it's his, hers, or theirs, it counts for calculating eligibility. Now they have what's called a Community Spouse Resource Allowance. You'll see it abbreviated CSRA. And that is about $154,000 as we make this video. So basically they take everything that's in the countable categories, and we've kind of mentioned the difference between countable and non-countable in past episodes, but they take everything that's countable, add it up, then they deduct $154,000 and some change from it and say, okay, the person living in the community or the person not needing the Medicaid is allowed to have this 154 number. Again, I don't remember the change part of it, but 154, everything above that is going to keep you from qualifying unless you do something to rearrange it into a non-countable category.
Can you tell the people at home what the spousal impoverishment rule is?
Yeah, so essentially spousal impoverishment came from a number of years ago where Medicaid used to not give a credit to the community spouse for assets that they might need to continue. And so they were becoming impoverished, and then they were ending up on Medicaid as well, right? So powers that be got together and said it doesn't make sense to take the money, spend it on one person just to put another person on the Medicaid roll. So we're going to come up with a number, and it gets adjusted each year, right? For inflation, we're going to come up with a number that the community spouse can keep so that they can meet, their financial needs out of the assets if they don't have enough income. It also covers them getting some income from the person who's receiving long-term care if they're in a nursing home. And that's called spousal diversion. And that's essentially where the rules say that the person living in the community can reach over in the pocket of the person in the nursing home and get some money out every month for them to live on if their income is too low. And there's a number that they adjust every year. It's 2,200 and something as we speak, that the community spouse, if they have that much or more, then they may not qualify to get money from the person in the nursing home. Now that can be adjusted upwards by excess housing costs. So if your electric and taxes and insurance and a certain other expenses exceed a particular amount, then for every dollar in excess, they'll give you an additional dollar out of the nursing home person's pocket if they have it to give, up to a point which is about $3,800 and some change. So essentially, they say you can have $2,200 and something dollars. If you don't have that, we'll let you get it from the person in the nursing home, and we'll adjust that up to about $3,800, depending on what your housing expenses are.
We kind of talked about a few different things, but I kind of want to go on a side quest because it,
Sure.
pops in my head. You guys deal with a lot of clients. You and your team deal with a lot of people, a lot of different emotions, a lot of stuff going around. How much does empathy play into what you do? I know these are real people you're dealing with. So how much
Sure.
does your personal feelings get attached to helping these people out?
They do. I like people. I enjoy what I do. I like working with them. I do have to say to families all the time, I'm sorry you're going through this. Obviously, the only thing I can do is to help with some of the emotions tied to the financial devastation it can create. I can't fix your total problem, but I can fix the financial side, and I'm happy to work with you and help you do that. And, we do understand sometimes people get a little crazy on the phone, but we understand they're under pressure. We take it all in stride. We work with them, tell them, listen, it's okay. We're going to get you through it. Take a breath. And, we just keep working with them. And we get an awful lot of thank you notes and positive reviews on Google about not only do we know what we're doing, but we're compassionate and we're there to answer questions. We return our phone calls. We understand families are under a tremendous amount of stress, and we try to work around that. It's a tough time of life. Really is.
It's amazing. How much do you find the reviews kind of dictate how people move nowadays? Do you feel that, like, because I think that's such a big part of things nowadays, especially going on Google reviews, different reviews. Like, has that affected your business at all?
It is. For years, I used to send out a questionnaire and say, give us comments and rate us. And strangely enough, I used a 5-star system before Google was doing that. And so I have hundreds of paper ones in a file. But then since, Google became a thing, I finally realized, all right, Tony, you got to start encouraging Google reviews. And we did away with the paper ones and, request Google reviews, because so many people, the first thing they do is they go look you up on Google. And, I don't think anybody expects somebody to have 5 stars if they have hundreds of reviews, because you can't make 100% everybody perfectly happy for various reasons, and including sometimes people are a little crazy. But, we run 4.9 stars, and I think we have pushing 400 reviews. And the only negatives in there are generally around, we do have a no refund policy, so people can hire us. Their loved one passes away in the middle of the process. We've already done most of the work. We don't refund, and that can upset some people. But beyond that, you'll see very, very positive reviews. And it is incredibly important. I don't think you can be a viable business today. Let's do it this way. Reviews and positive word of mouth have always been important. The way it is done today is through Google reviews.
So getting back to Medicaid, how does Medicaid treat income and assets for the spouse who's, staying at home?
Kind of a repeat, maybe positioned a little differently than the way I previously answered it. The person at home can keep the 154,000 or so, right? Mm-hmm. Changes every year. They also are going to get to keep all of their income regardless. Plus, if they don't have enough income to get up to the 20, whatever it is at the time, or the 3,800 with excess housing, they can take it from the community spouse if they have it to give. There is also a concept called just say no. It's called spousal refusal in the manual. Commonly, it's just called just say no. And that's essentially where the person living in the community says, look, I love my spouse, but I refuse to pay for their care. When that's done, the state then has to look at the person in the nursing home as a single person. And while the at home or the community spouse has to disclose all of their assets, they do not have to make their assets available. So literally, somebody with $10 million, it's an extreme example because I'm kind of being ridiculous, but can say, look, love my spouse, but I'm not paying for his or her care. And then Medicaid says, okay, we need to know about all that $10 million, but we're not going to count it in the calculations. So in that scenario, they're only looking at the person's assets in the name of that person that's in the nursing home. You cannot do this for home health care, assisted living. You can only do it for nursing home, but there's a procedure to it. You have to do things in the right order. You need to move the assets to the person in the community first. And please, nobody take this as legal advice. I'm just conceptually explaining something. I'm not saying whether you should or shouldn't do it, but you move the assets to the community spouse first. The community spouse says, not for lack of love and affection, but for financial reasons, I refuse to pay for my spouse's care. They sign a statement or an affidavit saying that. Then the legal representative of the person in the nursing home signs what's called a assignment of rights to support over to the state of Florida, where they say, okay, you can sue my spouse who refused to pay for my care if you want to. Now, I'm not an attorney. I don't know the legal mechanisms of this, but I know that Florida never, ever, 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 ever does it. I've been told two reasons. One is a common sense reason. One is a legal reason that I can't confirm or deny. The two reasons are: one, Florida is such a retirement haven. The cost to providing benefits for people who use this strategy is much less than the economic benefit that Florida gets. So they just kind of turn their head and let it happen. The second one is that Florida doesn't really have what are called familial support laws, which require support. So there's not really the legal mechanism for the state to pursue that. So the question then becomes, well, why in the heck do they, allow it? And it's because it's under the federal rules, and the federal rules lay out, if the states are going to allow this, here's what you have to do. And there's nothing in there about the familial support laws. So an attorney may watch this and say, look, that's completely incorrect. And that may be. What I know is that Florida, in the thousands of cases, like north of 17,000 cases I've seen, and all the attorneys I've dealt with, I have never known of Florida to pursue the community spouse who refused to pay for the care. So it's an option. There's a lot of other ones. I don't necessarily think it's the best one, but I'm not the attorney, so it doesn't really matter what I think.
Can you dispel any myths or fears that couples often have about losing everything? What don't they know?
Goes back to the misinformation that gets spread around, by
Yeah.
well-intentioned people. But the way I explain it to clients is, look, if we know about it up front between us and the attorney, you don't have to lose anything. All you have to do is spend the money to pay our fee, the attorney's fees, and sometimes some small ancillary costs, but very minimal, and then you can keep everything. So what they don't know is that there are so many ways to take a countable asset and turn it into a non-countable asset that the common person doesn't know. They've just heard the horror stories. And by the way, other states, there are some really, really tough states that it's much harder to protect everything. In some states, it's impossible to protect everything. You can only protect maybe half to 60% of it. That is not true in Florida. In Florida, you can protect every last dime except for the attorney's fees and mine, and very minor costs.
So what legal documents should couples have ready before they face a crisis?
Again, not specific legal advice to anybody, but my experience is, if you don't have a quality, durable power of attorney, you got a tough road to hoe if the person is not competent to make decisions. So, what is a quality, durable power of attorney? Well, it has to have the right words written on it, right? You can get the ones off LegalZoom. I have to tell you, they are horrible, horrible. Generally will not allow us to do what we need to do to protect assets for a family. This is the place where a good attorney is worth every dime. Now, obviously, this is a very huge generalization, what I'm about to say. It is a guideline. It is not a absolute. But generally speaking, the more pages in that power of attorney, the better power of attorney it is. Again, not 100%, but a good guideline. If you're pulling out mom's power of attorney and it's 2 pages, it's probably not going to do what we need. If it's 15 pages, good chance it's going to say what we need it to say. That document's more important than anything. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. I just want to make sure we get all the information. That's good stuff. So do you have a specific case or a time where, where that planning ahead kind of helped a married couple stay secure?
Again, we normally do crisis planning, so it's not so much planning ahead. It's coming in on the front end of a long-term care situation. It's still planning last minute. It's not pre-planning. It's just not waiting until you're already expending money out of your pocket. So if you come in before that happens, we can help. And, I have 17,000 plus cases that we could point to and say, this is where it worked.
So Tony, before I get you out of here, what do you love most about what you do? Your career, what you do for people. What does Tony love the most about his job?
There's really two things. I like dealing with the families. I like seeing the burden that comes off of a family when they start understanding their inheritance is not going to be spent on long-term care, or if it's a spouse, that they're not going to be impoverished because, their loved one needed long-term care. You literally, as you go through the conversation, you can start seeing the pressure come off of the people that you're talking to. And that's a huge reward. It's also oftentimes they have gone to somebody and talked to somebody that kind of knew a little, but not enough to really solve the problem. And they're very burdened and they think they've gotten quality advice. And so they're pretty sure it's hopeless, but they've heard about us and, came in to just take a second shot. And you can, they literally sometimes will say, why did the other person tell me that this couldn't be done? I'm like, I don't know. Why can one car mechanic fix a car and another one can't?
Yeah.
I don't know, but here's what can be done. So the other part that I really enjoy is whenever Medicaid says, well, you can't do that. And I go, well, sure you can. And here's your own rules that say you can. Well, that's not the way that we interpret them. I'm like, well, it's not a matter of how you interpret them. It's a matter of what it says. And so, if we need to go to bat with Medicaid, go to a fair hearing. I've even in 17,000 cases now, I want to make this clear because I don't want people to get unnecessarily alarmed, but there have been times that I've gone to the District Court of Appeals. It's been a total of 5. I have not won them all, where I've thought that Medicaid was absolutely wrong. And so I pay the money out of my pocket to take the client's case to the District Court of Appeals because I want final resolution on it. Win or lose, I want everybody in the state of Florida to know how Medicaid is going to deal with a particular item and how the District Court of Appeals is going to look at it. So, for example, an assignment is a piece of paper that says I'm transferring ownership of whatever except real estate to somebody else. Well, Medicaid has always said they wouldn't honor assignments. You have to change ownership of an asset at the source. I said, that's ridiculous. Transfer billions of dollars worth of mortgages with a one piece of paper called an assignment. You're telling me a client can't transfer, in this case, it was a life insurance policy. And I took it to the District Court of Appeals and they agreed and said, not only can you assign a life insurance policy, you can assign anything else. That's called a, quote, chosen action, which is a legal term that basically means anything other than real estate. So I am not afraid of challenging Medicaid for the benefit of my client, and rarely does it elevate to anything beyond an argument that I win, but sometimes it does, and I will take it all the way on my dime if need be. So I like the fight and I like the win, but I want to make it clear to clients, if we're ever trying anything new, it will be at the advice of an attorney, and we will disclose that it is, hey, we've never done this before. Here's why we think it would work. And it's the client's decision whether they pursue it or not. So, I want to be very clear that 99.99% of cases go through the system without huge problems.
Tony, thank you so much for your time and the information, sir.
You're very welcome.
And thank you all for tuning in to Medicaid Mastery with Antony Turbeville. To connect with Tony, go to platben.com. That's platben.com. And don't forget to like, subscribe, leave that comment on your favorite podcast app. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.